Spoilers start now. Hey folks, this is Arcaden here with the final part of this series, which has looked at choice and consequence in the narrative game Dispatch. For this final video, we're going to summarize the overall approach the game takes and what decisions you're able to make that affect the story. I'll also share some final thoughts and share some thoughts from people in the comments. And I'll correct the error I made in the last video about the visi-endings. Timestamps are below, let's get going. The first video in the series came out simply from my own curiosity. I was playing the first two episodes of Dispatch and generally felt unsure about what impact my decisions were actually going to have, what they would affect. I saw the game telling me that they mattered, but I didn't really know how. So I decided to dig in and try to do a more specific analysis. This series has really focused on that one part of the game, the choices you make and what they affect. In interviews, Ad Hoc has been pretty transparent about prioritizing the look and feel of the cinematics. They wanted this to feel like prestige television. Knowing that is their intent, I actually do think they did a very good job of making your decisions matter while sticking to their main priority. Of course, there are always areas for improvement. First, let's go back over what you can actually change in the game. As a quick summary, in Dispatch you make decisions in a few ways: specific dialogue or action choices, the dispatch scenes where you send your heroes out and level them up, the hacking minigames, and the QuickTime events. What we now know, thanks to some intrepid code diver on the internet and a few small statements from the publisher, is that the game works in part on a scale system. The choices you make in all of these different elements add up to a final score that mostly affects just what happens at the end of the game. The one we know most clearly, and maybe it's the only one, I don't know, is Robert's Mentor Score, which determines the ending for him and Invisigal. When you look at the game as a whole, here's what I think the major decisions you can affect are. You could affect whether Invisigal turns hero or villain, whether you date Invisigal, whether you date Blonde Blazer, who you fire in Episode 3, Coupe or Sonar, and who you hire in Episode 4, Waterboy or Phenomaman. Of all of these, the game seems most designed around whether Invisigal turns hero or villain, essentially how good a mentor Robert is to her. That decision also affects Robert's ability to decide if he gets vengeance on Shroud. If Visi turns villain, she kills Shroud, denying Robert that opportunity. If she turns hero, she saves Robert's life, and Robert gets to make that decision at the end. In my last video, I said I didn't think it was possible to get the hero Visi ending while still dating Blonde Blazer, which, as pointed out by literally hundreds of you, I think, is not true. The mentorship of Visi operates mostly separately from the dating decisions for either her or Blonde Blazer. To get the hero Visi ending, essentially you need to make supportive, mentory dialogue choices, pass the hacking minigames in her scenes, and level her up well enough in the dispatch segments. Apparently, 3 of the QuickTime events in the bar matter as well. Again, this is a scale. No single decision fully determines her path. So for example, you can cut her from the team and still get the good ending, but doing so will subtract points from your overall mentor score for her. If you want to see the specific math, I'll link to the Reddit post in the description of this video. It walks through the points for each variable. Very cool work. Since I missed it in the last video, I'm going to briefly go over the non-romance good hero Visi endings. So if you mentor Visi well, she will jump in front of the bullet that Shroud fires at you. Robert gets to make his decision regarding Shroud. If you're romantically involved with Visi in this shot, they'll almost kiss. If not, she'll just fall backwards. Then there's an ambulance scene. If you're dating Visi, that sequence ends with her kissing you. If you're dating Blazer, she says this.
I guess your girlfriend's alright.
She's not my girlfriend.
Then you're an idiot, because it's obvious she wants to you.
I hear a 14-year-old boy wrote all of Invisigal's dialogue. The dating decisions affect just that, who you date, and they give you a few different scenes, some different dialogue. With Visi, you can only be in a romantic relationship by the end if you also successfully mentor her. That's because if she turns villain, she'll leave the game at that point, and you won't end up in a relationship. With Blazer, choosing to date her gets you a few new scenes. You got the date outside the office, which is the equivalent of the Visi theater date, and then you get the Blazer locker room scene. Blazer will also be more affectionate at a few moments throughout the game, including your final kiss on a car, if you've successfully romanced each other. Who you fire affects who is on your team and their presence in both dispatch and story scenes. I'm going to summarize this here, but if you want all the details, definitely check out the last videos. Coupe and Sonar essentially trade places throughout the game based on your decision. If one gets a line of dialogue or a unique action in a scene, the other would as well. It's just the content is slightly different. If one appears in the background, the other will be there if you chose them instead. The most significant change is that whoever you fire will join forces with Shroud and fight you in Episode 8's dispatch segment and in the action scene at the end of that episode. Both the coupe and sonar fight scenes are two of my favorite scenes in Episode 8. I think they are pretty fun. And the jokes in the bathroom and the bar fight scene are some of my favorite jokes in the game as well. As for who you hire, it functions the same way. Whoever you hire, you get in dispatch and they'll appear in story scenes. If you hire the other person, they'll essentially fill the same slot. To me, this is a more minor, quote, big decision, because it doesn't really affect the story, and by the end, everybody is in your team anyway. But just like with the firing decision, you get different jokes, different dialogue, and different powers to focus on in the dispatch sections. There is the decision about you revealing your identity as Mechaman, but I don't think that counts as a big one, mostly because its effects are pretty limited. Yes, if you reveal it at the taco place, you get a bit more flambe content. He'll try to kill you in episode 5, won't be in the dispatch, comes back and punches you at the end of episode 6, and gets an additional line in the Visi decision scene.
I feel the same as Golem. You all let me back in when you didn't have to.
The weird thing is if you don't admit to it, everybody but Flambe finds out at the housewarming party.
We don't need to be Mechaman to be a hero.
Their reaction is about the same either way.
Wait, Robert's Mechaman?
Flambe ends that episode not knowing your identity. But then it's never brought up again. That's a bit disappointing considering how much tension has been built between Flambe and Robert since episode 1. Another decision that's big from a roleplay perspective, but not mechanically, is Robert's choice to kill or spare Shroud. This decision changes the reporter and Chase interactions.
There's a story out there that Shroud was killed by not a superhero, but an SDN dispatcher. Care to comment?
And it also opens up a new dialogue option on the car with Blonde Blazer. If you say it felt great to kill him, she looks put off. But in my playthrough, we still ended up making out. Now, this could be another scale thing where maybe that would affect it if you're low on a scale with her, I don't know. Let me know if your experience differed. Then there are the small things that change. There's of course Flambe's missing tooth or his missing eyebrows, depending on what you throw at him. Whatever you say your favorite donut is what Waterboy will give you when he thanks you for hiring him. Things like the item you get from whoever you fire appears in the background of your office for the entire game. If you hired Waterboy, one eagle-eyed YouTuber noticed he's a bit more confident washing the windows compared to if you didn't. Nice little things. I think there could be more of these, but we'll talk about that in a second. Overall, of all the many decisions you can make while playing, the only ones that truly affect the main storyline in a significant way are the ones revolving Visi. You could argue that the firing decision is major too, but in my opinion, if you removed it, nothing about the main story fundamentally changes. The fact that your mentorship with Visi affects your ability to take revenge on Shroud makes it a more meaningful decision, at least to me. A lot of people in the comments of the series talked about how much your expectations matter when approaching this game, and I definitely found that true for myself. Initially, having never played Telltale games and coming from choice-heavy RPGs, I was expecting and hoping for more branching paths. Their marketing also focused a lot on choice and consequence. Once I got on board that this was more of an on-rails interactive fiction, that went away and I just had mostly a good time with it. This is, after all, what Ad Hoc has stated as the intention of the game and kind of their approach. It was originally a TV show. That didn't work out. They wanted to make a game that had the production quality of prestige TV, so they prioritized those elements over adding more story paths. And those elements are definitely high quality. So considering their intention, I think they actually struck a good balance. And as long as you know that's what you're getting, I think this is a blast. Not that there isn't room for improvement. Another person in the comments, and I'm not saying people's names because I don't know if people would want that, so I'm just erring on the safer side of that decision. Anyway, they said it would feel better if there were more small things reactive to your dialogue choices, and I think this is very right, especially in the first few episodes. A few more reactive moments would help keep players engaged until the bigger decisions come, and also maybe do a better job of teaching them of what decisions actually do. Because that's the biggest problem I have with the choice and consequence in this game. It isn't how little there is, it's how vague the system is to the player. When playing, you're told constantly that your choices matter, but only a few moments actually make that clear. And the system feels a bit off. When you tell Blazer and Chase that Invisigal punched you, it says they will remember that, which assumes it's them. But this actually affects Robert's mentor score within Visi-Gal. And if you think about that for more than a few seconds, it starts to fall apart. Like, doesn't Visi-Gal find out about this? Does she not? And the mentor score is just this like godlike decision that affects Visi-Gal's choices? Let me know if I'm missing something, but to me, the mechanics feel vague and the logic of the choice system feels a bit inconsistent. The impact of the dispatch segment is incredibly vague. Not only do you not know what they might affect in the story, but the game's story doesn't react to your performance in any clear way. Do great in the first dispatch?
I thought it was pretty good.
Do badly in the first dispatch?
I thought it was pretty good.
What?
Perform well in this dispatch?
Okay, team. Good shift, all things considered.
Perform badly in this dispatch?
Okay, team. Good shift, all things considered.
As a player, that indicates to me that this doesn't really matter. Now, I think having a vague rule set is a totally viable option for a game, but if you're going to do that, you need to make experimentation easier, because you're essentially forcing players into trial and error. If you're going to be that vague, you have to make it easier for us to get through the game quickly. Please, God, do a skip dialogue option. The other alternative to that would be to add, like, a few sentences as to what your decisions actually affect. It doesn't have to be super detailed, but some more consistent and effective guidance would really help. The only reason we know how the Visi mentorship scale works is because someone looked into the code and posted about it online, it got picked up and passed around and covered by some people. And there are still plenty of remembered decisions that we don't know what they affect. I personally don't think a lot of the average gamers spend tons of time on Reddit or reading PC Gamer or whatever. This game should work well for those people, so not require somebody posting on Reddit or a developer's statement on Discord to understand how the game plays. And yes, Ad Hoc is not a AAA studio, but they ain't two guys in a shed with $50,000. This is definitely a decently resourced production at the very least. So when Ad Hoc says something like people don't understand that we're an indie studio because it looks so good, that feels a bit disingenuous. I think it's more that they chose to prioritize the look and feel, and then other things got a little less love. But considering how many people liked the game and how much I enjoyed it, I think that was a pretty good strategic decision. Alright, moving on. The dialogue and action choices are just one part of the game. There are other elements. It's like dispatch and hacking. I enjoyed both of these and think they were really well balanced. There was just the right amount of them, and they had the right amount of depth to make that amount interesting. That was a lot of amounts. I've seen people say that the dispatch segments are so good they could be their own game, and I think that's crazy talk. If you stretch what's there into 2 straight hours, you would be bored out of your mind. And that's not a criticism. I think that's just the consequence of their smart decision to balance this so it's engaging, but doesn't override the story and the cinematic feel. And as for that story, well, I had a great time watching it unfold. I laughed pretty consistently. I thought some of the action scenes were great. I think the bar fight is just a great bar fight scene across any medium. The story they chose to tell with Robert and his potential mentorship ability, I think, is pretty compelling. One commenter described it as a re-origin story, and I like that. You know, how do we reinvent ourselves when what we thought we were is gone? I think that's a great way to introduce a character. And above all else, I really liked all of the characters. I think they are the most enjoyable part of the game, hands down. Which is actually pretty weird considering in many ways I think they're very underdeveloped, especially Shroud and Chase. Chase is pretty important to the main plotline, yet most of what we know about him is that he's an older brother figure to Robert and he likes to say the F word a lot. As for the other characters, they all share the same generic we become heroes character arc. The fact that these characters work so well and are the best part of the game is to me a testament to the amazing talent that brought them to life. And I'm talking everybody. You get a combination of excellent voice acting from every single one of those people. The animation for each character I think is great. Things like this quick shot here, right before Chase runs to save Visi-Gal, or Coupe's smile of pride before she vomits on Robert. There's tons of great moments like that that really help these characters feel like real people. And while the story might be underdeveloped for them, the dialogue does some real nice work. Things like the fact that Prism gets angry so quickly but still calls Blazer Miss Blazer gives me a picture of who she is as a person without explicitly defining it. That compensates for the fact that she doesn't really have her own character journey. So these aren't deep, well-drawn characters, but they are charming as hell. It's kind of like watching Ocean's 11. Sure, you don't know much about them, but you do know that you like them a lot. While the story in general is enjoyable, by the end it does start to feel a little light and sloppy. By the time we get to the climax, we still have no real understanding of Shroud's motivations. We don't know what caused his turn from hero to supervillain, and we don't even know what his plan is until he puts that thing in his head. The other thing is the Z-Team in this sequence for sure is at physical risk, but the actual emotional stakes around them proving themselves at this point are basically non-existent. There's no narrative pressure about that on them. Combine that with the ambiguity around Shroud, and these action scenes just feel like that, just action scenes. As a contrast, I think the scenes with whoever you fired in the final episode have a bit more history and depth, and so feel more engaging. And then, like many of you mentioned in the comments, there's a lot of little things that don't add up. Here's a couple of them. If you give Shroud the prototype, he instantly knows, but if you give him both, he's just totally unable to handle it. He's seen thousands of variations, but none where Invisible betrays him. How to get beef? This team of professionals doesn't check if he's actually incapacitated. The criminals who got the crap beat out of them are suddenly totally fine and surround the Z-Team, and why do bosses feel like they could just walk into the opposite gender's locker room? That's not a plot hole, it's just a crazy, crazy thing they do here. Those are just a couple, there's definitely more. Now, in my first playthrough, these things did kinda nag at me, but for the most part, the strengths of the game really pushed me through it, and I had a good time. But a lot of people say this is like a great TV show, but not a great game, and I don't fully agree with that. If this was a 100% passive viewing experience, these things would weigh a lot heavier on the story. The combination of elements they put together work really well. It's a little bit of game, a moderate amount of choice and consequence, and a lot of entertaining workplace superhero comedy.
You gonna eat those Twinks?
And it turns out, that combination works pretty well, for me at least. This will be the end of my Dispatch coverage. Thank you all who have liked, commented, and subscribed. It's been really exciting to see. This channel is just 9 months old, and I'm still playing around with what content works well on it. You can definitely expect more deep dives into interesting mechanics like this. I do some story summaries and analysis, and also guides for complicated games. Another priority for me is to spotlight indie games that are doing cool, innovative stuff, just to get those on your radar. So stay tuned, and if any of that sounds interesting, make sure to subscribe. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching.